I've got like we've got to get. I've got to get some kind of. I might. Let me see here. Let me try one more thing.
You're good. All right, so the audio's live. I'm gonna fade you all in and shrink down that right there. So there you go. You guys are
Uh,
live. There's 5 people here. Welcome, everyone. All right, so you guys are recording. You guys are good. I'm gonna run. Ashley, you got my number, so just shoot me a text, and
Cool.
I'll come back down. So
Awesome.
good luck.
All right. Well, thank you everybody who is joining us. Sans Reed and Blaine. It's going to be a 2-horse show tonight. Yeah, Jason.
yes, I think so.
All right.
Not. I don't know how horse. I don't know. Well, it's be 2 horses.
Yeah,
Yes,
for
we'll try
sure.
to do their
For
best.
sure. Okay, I'm ready to get going whenever you are. You good?
Yeah, I've got. Is there anybody in the chat right now?
Let's check.
I can't tell. I've got it. I thought I had it up, but I don't see anybody. Maybe I haven't popped out. Yeah. Oh, Reed's here. Okay, so
Just
yeah.
Reed.
Okay. Oh,
Just kidding.
Shannon's
here.
here.
We go. We're
Okay.
a little early. We're technically starting 1 minute early. We usually start at
Oh, so you
6:45.
guys, I haven't had a chance to like jump on this.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so you actually start right at that quarter hour. So
Yeah, I ruined everything this year because I work later, so they had to adjust to me. So six I can't always get home by 6:30, so 6:45 is our new gig.
that sounds great.
So, yeah, all right. Let me get the notes pulled up, and then we'll do the good old intro. All right? Is it episode 8? I feel like it's episode 9. It's episode 8. Okay, hello and welcome to episode 8 of MLS Fantasy Insider, our review of round 4 and preview of round 5. This episode is brought to you by the international break, because when MLS doesn't actually take a break, they call it an international break. But all the best players leave. Kidding? No, actually, brought to you by our amazing MLSFI Patreon supporters. It's because of you and your support we're able to keep making this project go. I am your host, not Reed Connolly. Instead, tonight, I am here holding it down for Reed and Blaine. I'm Ashley Savage, and joining me tonight is our very special guest, Jason Morris. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing well, Ashley. Thank you. I'm coming to you from somewhere in the District of Columbia.
Perfect.
So
Great.
Yep, yep.
Cross-continental show tonight, yeah?
Yes. I'm staying up just past my bedtime. Well, maybe
Perfect.
not quite, but we'll get
Perfect. So let's get into it. High-pointed round, especially for anybody who, spoiler alert, Captain Almeida, just a beast this week. So yeah, let's take a look at it. Jason, why don't you go ahead and start? Why don't you tell me how you did?
Sure. Yeah. So I had 120 points. So I can't remember the last time I got that many points when it wasn't a double game week.
Yeah. Right.
And I won one of my head-to-heads, which was like the first win of the season. So, and my overall value is like almost up to 112 million. I started off really poorly. So I'm happy with like just to be back to that for value, and we'll see if I can claw my way back out of I think I'm in the relegation zone for whatever the Pro World League is or something. So hopefully we'll get back out.
If it makes you feel better, I'm in the relegation zone for the league that I run for MLSFI. So you're in
Okay.
good company. Don't worry about it.
Right.
I pulled a 107 this week, which for this week is kind of bad. It felt okay. I won half of my head-to-heads. I'll take that. I did lose, as I know people love to hear me lose to Spencer. I did lose to Spencer for the second time already this season. Never happened to me before. He's thrilled about it. He got a 126, I think, last round. My overall price has gone up a great amount, though. I'm at 116.8. So it's just starting to feel like I can really kind of do, not everything, but, kind of play with that money. Reed posted a 113 for this week, even though the Skylar tax took a point from him. His overall value up to 112. And then I have to give a shout out because we were so harsh on him about it last week. Blaine got a 116, even though he stuck to his guns and he triple stacked that Philly defense, which was insane. It ended up to be wrong. So for him to get a 116 with a triple Philly stack was amazing.
That's impressive.
He said he was 490 for the round, so that's fantastic. no kudos to Blaine for going triple Philly stack when we all tried to talk him out of it, but kudos to Blaine for putting out such a score with the triple Philly. So that's impressive.
It looks like Hickson in the chat got 139. I'm impressed.
I'm seeing some great scores in chat. A couple 117s, 111. Nice job. I mean, over 100 this week I think was kind of a must. And like you said, I'm not used to scoring in the one teens or anything like that without a double game week. This was a really great point production week for some of the bigger players. 126, nice job. Yeah, if you had Wiley and Almeida, I feel like your team was just dominating this week. And if you didn't captain Almeida, I'm so sorry for you. And also, why? Why did you not? Let's get into some of the expectations.
What's 116? Can I ask you, what's 116 like for your price value, Ashley? Is that really high? That seems really high to me.
I was able to make a team for next week and not have a scrub. And that felt kind of nice. Yeah, for me, I feel like once you get to 120 is when we kind of stop having to, not budget, but do you know what I mean? You don't have to have that one player anymore. Yeah, I mean, I definitely spent it. This was, I think, and Reed and Blaine and I have done a terrible job of tracking it on a weekly basis, but this was definitely my biggest bump. I didn't lose on anybody this week. I had a price rise, I think, on most of my players. So that was definitely a positive for me, and I'm excited to kind of tinker with the lineup I have set right now and see what I want to do next week with that cushion. I know there's people with more than me. I don't feel like I'm, I definitely am the money banks with the boys on the pod, but I know that there's people who've been using that price rise game better than I have. So happy to have the 116 and start kind of playing around with that. So yeah, let's get into some of the expectations versus realities for some of the games this week. I'll go ahead and start with my homework conversation of Seattle LAFC. I had Bouanga on my bench this week. I expected that to continue. I've heard that there's been kind of some talk in chat as well about how to betting against your own team or trying to stay homer. And for me, it's fantasy, right? Like the data showed me that Bouanga could probably come in to Seattle and put a goal or two away. So I picked him up. I also had Alex Roldan in one draft, and I dropped him after LAFC, how well I know they've been doing. So I don't think, there's anything wrong about betting against your team. Look at poor Reed. How many seasons did he have to bet against FC Cincinnati before they finally pulled out for him, But no, the expectation for me was honestly a LAFC road win. I expected kind of maybe a gritty tie, and that's what we got. A Seattle shutout was not something I was expecting, but that was great for those defenders. Alex Roldan, I still think, is a top 5 fantasy point player in the whole game still with all of his points. And the highest pointed, this was definitely not an expectation for me, but the highest pointed field player that was not a defender in this game was Joao Paulo with 5 points. Vela, nothing. Bouanga, nothing. That was really surprising to me to see no production out of Rui Diaz, Ladero, some of those players that we still see kind of pop even in a matchup like this. So definitely different than what I was expecting, the reality. And then, Atlanta, Portland, I don't even know where to start with that one. I was definitely last week talking about how I thought the Wiley hype was a flash in the pan. His first 2 weeks showed more of that than the third round did. And man, did he prove me wrong. And so, I think as long as he's playing out of position, it's kind of a must own, They're really getting him the ball. He's really contributing. He looks great. He's still so cheap. So, he, like I said, definitely proved me wrong. And then one thing I was expecting that obviously came through was Almada. And that point production was phenomenal. Like I said, if you didn't captain him, I'm sorry. And also why. And a couple other, positive contributions. The one thing I think a lot of us were probably really mad about was the shutout. If you picked up Lennon or Gutman, no shutout points.
But if you picked up Wiley, he got him Madranda, and
you got him Madranda. He got subbed out.
Points.
Yeah, he sure did, which was fantastic. But yeah, Portland pulled one back, which was a bummer for anybody with an Atlanta defender. And then no Evander in the 18 is something I was not expecting and definitely was the reality. So there's an injury there. I wasn't sure. I haven't seen how serious that is. We can get to that a little later in the injury notes, which are also posted on Discord if you want to pull those up. And then the last one I'll touch on, I left a little spot here if Blaine was able to make it tonight to talk about Montreal and Philly, because last week Blaine was so heavy on the Philly triple stack back line. Philly let 3 goals get in, so it was very surprising. I know it was a road game, but still, no Blake. It definitely made a difference. And then the last game I'd like to touch on was St. Louis San Jose. I was expecting a close. Sorry, St. Louis San Jose. I was expecting a close St. Louis win. I think San Jose looks good, but man, St. Louis is really riding that opening wave that they have, but I did not expect them, to break this record, 4 straight wins, expansion team. But they just crushed them. I mean, 3-0, all good goals. Klaus scoring again, which I think is super relevant for fantasy.
Yeah.
Lovin was disappointing with the 3.
Yeah,
And then, another fantasy implication I did not expect was a shutout from St. Louis. They're relatively cheap defenders, relatively cheap keeper. They weren't very high on...
they did that without, I don't think... Tim Parker was scratched, and somebody else was scratched too. I think they were missing 2 of their starters. So.
Exactly, yeah. So pretty impressive performance for them, I have to say. And when these expansion clubs come out, we talked about this with Charlotte last year too. Like, you kind of just wait and see. I still kind of feel like this could fizzle, but it's very impressive from a fantasy perspective what some of these players. We've talked about Stroud, we've talked about Klaus. Klaus has had a goal contribution in every game the first 4 games. So. They seem to be pretty legit at the moment, so I'm gonna ride that out for a little bit, and they're fun to watch. Yeah, Gene just said this in chat. They're fun to watch, which is really, really cool. Yeah, Jason, what were some of your expectations for last round, and what ended up being the reality?
Let's see. When teams like Seattle and LAFC play, like big teams, top of the table teams play, I get scared away from that kind of stuff with trying to make predictions. So I totally, I didn't take any players from that team, and it turned out, I turned out about the way that I thought it would. Right, that it would be more a lot closer. And I was glad, at least on the fantasy side, that the gamble to not take players. I mean, I guess I could have done something on the defensive side, but at least like Jordan Morris or I don't know, usual suspects didn't show up and like bang in some goals and screw me, over with. I would get set back from other teams. Let's see, NYCFC DC United. So I'm DC United supporter, and I always bet against DC United. Generally, it's not too hard. But what I would say about that one was like. I took Santi Rodriguez. I did have him in the team. I was glad I did. I kind of wanted to wait another week on that because I just thought maybe he needed to get a little more settled. But when I looked at percentage ownership of how many other people had him in their teams, I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick him up. So I was really pleased, that I did that. I'll be interested to see what they can do away from Yankee Stadium because they were playing on that narrow pitch. But I was impressed with that. And then
I have to chime in on that really quick because I have this thing that lives in my head that Blaine said last season. I don't know why it does, but it does, and I thought of it this weekend too. I also teetered with not having Santi in my team this week and then saw the lineup. Blaine one round last week said, if Santi is in the 10 at Yankee Stadium, like playing in the 10 spot, you pick him up. I don't care if Tati's there. You pick him up. Yeah. And I remember at the time being like, gosh, that's such a bold Blaine take, but it's proven quite accurate. And I think this week was a great example of it because he was back in that 10 role. So, and like you said, narrow Yankee Stadium pitch.
Yeah. Oh, and I thank you. Wheelan and Dealan is telling us that the new stadium will be the same dimensions that it was confirmed this week, which I can't possibly be right. No.
I hope Wheelan is pulling our hair.
Anyway, I know we got to move on, but I would say, Mateus Klitsch, from DC, he's got a solid floor. I was, I would just say, for I think he's at 9 million right now. He had 2 assists in that game. He's on a lot of set pieces. A lot of things run through him. I'm not telling you that you should spend 9 million on him as opposed to other, stronger players. But if you're looking for somebody with a solid floor who's had some good outings, whose value is going to increase, that might be a good choice. I didn't get to see a lot of games this week, but I did watch half of Vancouver, LA, because I didn't have Ricky Puig. I had Brugman instead, but I kind of
Same.
wanted to see what they would be like, and that was super mad. Like I was unimpressed with LA, with Galaxy,
Yeah.
and I'm not going back to them until I see more from them. It was also, I've never had this happen. 2 weeks in a row now that my first choice goalkeeper has gone out in the first half with an injury. So I had
Oh.
Blake on my team last week, and then I had Bond this week.
I had Bond
Um,
this week too. That was a real buzzkill.
yeah. Houston versus Austin. Blaine mentioned Hector Herrera last week. I had him in my team week 2, and I picked him up again this week. So he got that goal. I'm kind of wearing this Houston Dynamo-esque jacket. I'm from Texas, but I don't normally follow Dynamo. But Ben Olsen's managing them now, so
Sure,
I don't know. I think
it's extension, right? Yeah.
extension. They might be worth keeping an eye on. And I thought Colorado would do better against Minnesota, but Minnesota's been sneaky at getting results, and Colorado just lost Jack Price for the season, so it sounds that doesn't look good to me. And then Chicago scored 3 goals without Shaqiri, and Kasper Shabilko scored one of them. So I'm not sure if that's going to be something you want to duplicate, but I certainly didn't expect to see any of that. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to generalize, but I got to say, kind of a round that was against our expectation a little bit, right? I think.
Yeah, I mean, other than the Almada thing,
yes,
I would say,
a lot of those games definitely kind of bucked my expectations. Some of the players produced the way I thought they would, but some of those scorelines were pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get in. Let's take a quick pause so Reed doesn't get mad at me, and we'll then get into our housekeeping.
All right.
Okay, I think that's a long enough pause. I can't remember how long he does it for some reason, but that felt long enough. Okay, let's get into our housekeeping. 4th round, a couple of teams already starting to pull away. Some people just ahead on points still. In our Pro Rel leagues, in our Champions League, we have 2 teams tied at 4-0-0, but Todd Modisette is winning there by points. In my league that I'm about to get relegated from, the Veterans League, Master Kathy Bate, which is a team name I don't love, aka Miller, is in the lead on record 4-0-0 still, only 4-0-0 player. In our homegrown lead, it's a 3-way tie, but it says that Gabrielle, I feel like this is not an intentional joke, Fardasmelly is taking over the top spot. Now I'm starting to think people name their teams just to hear us say it like
so
that.
So you can read them, yeah.
Exactly. And then in our Discovery League, 2 teams are tied at 4-0-0, but the Benny Ballers are on top by points.
Benny Ball, yeah.
In our other leagues, Discord League, 14 teams are tied at 4-0-0. But Sporting Pork Roll CF is up top on points. Patreon League, 8 teams tied. Waco Wanderers ahead on points. And then MLSFI Experts Invitational, looks like Sloppy Steaks is still taking it there on points. Okay, let's get into I'm going to touch on just one other housekeeping thing. I'm going to go out of order. Don't tell Reed. But I'd like to talk about call-ups before we really get into next round. So next round starts, all the games are Saturday. You wrote March 35th. March 25th. And they kick off at 4:30 Eastern time. It's always hard for me because I know it's 1:30, but, clocks. The only team on a bye this week is Montreal, so if you're looking to do your Otteroo and your scrub, go with Montreal. They're not going to play. There is Open Cup, Nations League, Youth International, European Euro qualifiers. So there's a lot going on. So I'm going to reference real quick. I want to thank Tyler and everybody else, Ranch Nader, everybody who contributes to this call-up list. If you are in the Discord, it is linked in the general MLS chat. Tyler has put it there. I'm also going to encourage you to check the injury and suspension list there because those go to Blaine every week, and I don't see it. Like you said, I know Jack Price picked up a big injury, and I think there's a couple other players with red cards and everything like that. So when you're looking for that, head to Discord, search in the chat. They're linked there. And like I said, big thanks to Tyler for all the work that he does and everybody that contributes to this. So call-ups. We're talking call-ups this week. Everybody's playing. Not everybody's here. So I'm going to touch on some of the bigger names as we go through team by team of some players that will be missing this week, at least this week, possibly more. For Atlanta, we're missing Almada, Etienne Jr., Gigi, and Robinson. Those are some big names, kind of a spine of the team. And I think after last week, a lot of people would like to go to Almada, but you can't. Austin, only real name they're missing is Wolf. Even that, I don't know if that's a big name, but he has been playing. Charlotte's going to miss Swiderski. Chicago is missing Navarro. Cincy is missing Moreno.
Their leading scorer. Their
leading scorer. Much to Reed's disdain. Colorado is going to miss Rubio and Yappi, so
that's pick against them. Even that helps me. That makes me pick against them even more. Even though they're playing Austin, so I'm gonna pick against them.
I like Austin defense when you look at it like that. Columbus is missing Room, Zella, Dejenek. DC United, none of those names are names that I know from starters, so I don't know if that's Fletcher, really affecting them.
I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah.
Houston is missing Carrasquilla, Castilla, Valdez. Galaxy are missing Jovelik, Leardam, and Zavaleta. LAFC Bouanga, your Golden Boot leader, gone. Sifu and Palacios. If you're looking for LAFC defense right now, Hollingshead, I believe, is still hurt. I know he was listed as day-to-day, but I don't think he's made much progress. And now Palacios out too. So there's going to be some shifting in that back line this week. Miami is missing Mabika, Joseph Martinez, Taylor. Minnesota is missing a lot. Arriaga, Boxel, I'm going to say long. Yeah. Thank you, Longwan.
I'm going to have to take him out of my team because I had him on my bench. Oh, well.
Kamara Lawrence, maybe. There's a question mark there. Laud, Dane St. Clair, and Rosales. Lots of gaps in that Minnesota team this week. Montreal is missing Kamal Miller and Kyoto. Nashville is missing no one. I don't know if that will get updated, but right now, as of today, that's where it sits. Revolution are missing McCone and Borio. Red Bull are possibly missing Burke, Caceres, and then someone that doesn't play. NYCFC are missing Chanel and Ilinik, who I don't think is starting anymore. I know that was a sneaky start for a while. Orlando is missing Gillespie, Holiday, Fernando Torres, and Williams. Philly is missing Gazdag, Martinez, McGlynn, Sullivan. Portland is missing Mascara, and I know this sounds crazy, but I think that is probably the biggest loss they could take right now because they have a lot of other injuries, and he has been their most dynamic player in that wingback position. So that's just another hole in the defense that's going to need to be plugged. RSL is missing Luna, Ojeda, Rubin, Savarino. San Jose is missing Montiero and Gruezo. Seattle is missing Arriaga, who's not starting, Nuhu, who is, Alex Roldan, who is, Rui Diaz, who just came back from injury, and it sounds like Hebert will probably not be fit enough to fill in for him. So Chief Freddie Montero. Most likely.
Okay.
We'll see. I wouldn't go any Seattle striker this week at SKC, but if there was one to start, it looks like it'll probably be Freddie. SKC is missing, I wish Blaine was here, Chionis? Someone will tell me.
Okay.
TZ, I mean, that's a tough one. St. Louis is losing just Perez. Toronto also missing a lot of people. Akinola, Kay, Larea, Osorio. And then Vancouver is missing Cordova and Cubas. Again, if I said that too fast or you're not sure who I mentioned, head to Discord, general chat. Tyler's pinged that there. And just once again, thank you so much to Tyler for all the work he does there. And now we'll take a quick pause before we get into our player targets for this upcoming round. All right. Some consensus on some of these picks. Thanks to Blaine and Reed, even though they couldn't be here tonight, for throwing in some of their opinions. I appreciate it. Kind of gives people some other things to think about. I'll go ahead and get us started off. What popped out to me this week, Philly is a team that doesn't look to be losing any of their back line. Bendik is cheap. Didn't have a great point performance in his last outing, but I'm considering going Bendik to McCarthy for LAFC. Almost all the games, and I am generalizing, kick off at 7:30 Eastern in this round. So it's kind of hard to pull off a keeper this week. I think you can definitely, if you want to pull some, I don't love Portland. We'll talk about them in a minute because the other guys do. But if you're picking anybody from the 4:30 games, you don't get to see that game finish until the RSL St. Louis, LAFC Dallas, San Jose Toronto. So it just kind of limits what you do for Keeperoo this week. So personally, I'm considering Benedict McCarthy. I think there's a couple other good options. That's just what jumped out to me. For defenders, I'm looking at Brandon Bye for New England. He's putting up some good point production, some good bonus points. I think that could be a clean sheet for them. Even though it's on the road at DC, I don't love road defenders, but that's a player I think even without a clean sheet might be a good point producer. He's getting expensive, so I really want to feel good about it before I grab him. The other individual players I'm looking at this week are Caleb Wiley, because like I said, price rise, where he's playing. If he's starting in the same role, I think that's a definite pick this week, especially with Gigi gone now. Almeida gone, I think is going to play a role in their offensive point production. But at the very least, Caleb Wiley is going to price rise. He would have to get 2 red cards to not. So that's a player that I think is definitely, honestly, for me, will probably be on my bench, but is definitely going to be in my team. And then I'm also looking at Gressel, again, expensive. Not the cheapest player in the game right now. But it's that at Minnesota, and we talked about how many names from that team, from their starting lineup, did I read off to you, that they're missing this week. So definitely considering Gressel this week. And then the other defenses that I like and haven't necessarily targeted a specific player yet to work through my budget is Nashville and Austin. Austin's been a little disappointing, I think, for some of us defensively to start the season, but Gallagher has been kind of a fun one to target for his offensive point production. And then, the Nashville defenders continue to rise in value, which means they're continuing to produce at least a little bit. So that's kind of where I'm looking at this week as far as goalkeepers and defense. Jason, what stands out to you?
Let's see. I think I'm going to have to. Well, I mean, this might be one of the places I might still do some pivoting now that I've looked at all of those call-ups. But I will preface this by saying that after the really disastrous first week that I had of the game, I decided I'm going to take this whole chunk of the game, this whole few weeks until we start the second Champions League round. I'm going to build value, and that's kind of what I'm going to focus on. And I don't try and clean sheet hunt for goalkeepers. I'm just not any good at it. So usually I just make some stabs. So I'm going to probably take whoever starts for Portland just to see what happens, because I watched part of that LA game. I wasn't super impressed. And in terms of the pivot, maybe Brad Stuver. I think I would go that route, but I might decide to go to a different thing. I'll take Bye also probably for right now, especially because New England's coming to DC. I would normally not take away. I usually err on the side of not taking away players, but he's been playing well, and I think DC's left side, they had a couple of injuries on the left side of defense, and I think Bye plays on the right side, or if it's not Bye, it'll be Dwan Jones. So whoever's going to attack what I think is going to be a side of the DC defense that was already not very good, and they've got some defenders loose, I'm going to do that. I'll take Caleb Wiley. I've got Gallagher from Austin on there. And then I've got Zach McGraw on my bench right now from Portland as well. I had him on earlier in the season. He might get a header, he might do some stuff. And he's less expensive than some other defenders. The other thing I've been trying to do with building value is to use very few scrubs. So even if that means that I've got one scrub in right now for defense, but I'll buy some cheaper players just so I can get a bunch of people that are going to play and get some value. So I don't think Birnbaum's hurt. There's a question in the chat about that.
He went off early. I defer.
Did he go off early, or he went? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that he scored that goal, and then there was a big muddle at the. I haven't seen anything about him being hurt, but I'm not sure. So
check the Discord. Tyler's data will tell you.
A
couple names that we didn't call out that Blaine and Reed have. Blaine likes the starting with the Portland keeper as well, but going to Calendar. I also am kind of looking at Inter Miami this week, not missing too many people, at least defensively. Calendar has been producing point wise to start this season. He's already kind of, I think, 7.1. So yeah, definitely something to consider there. They agree with us about Wiley and Gallagher. Blaine giving you a shout out there, also with McGraw. And then Reed is going Marcinkowski perhaps as his keeper, which is interesting running San Jose.
Okay.
Um, and then yeah, also some Atlanta or some Austin, Gressel, and then yeah, Wiley is our definite consensus pick. Um, uh, Reed also mentions that Portland and LA would be decent for any of your Arus because of the time difference. Like I said, most of these games start at 7:30. I always have to do math. Sorry, 7:30, and then 8:30, and then just two games at 9:30. So that 4:30 kickoff for the Portland LA is enticing for the Ottaroos, if you will. And I will, as I mentioned, calendar from Blaine. Christian in chat talks about how Gregor out kind of makes him iffy, and I agree. I think that you really are going to need to look at what's a normal starting lineup, what's next round starting lineup, to kind of figure out, who's going to be most impacted by these call-ups. Couple other names I saw in chat, Petrovic. I mean, I think that's a decent shout. Probably going to DC. It is a road play, but still. And Wagner, I've seen a couple times. Some of the guys have him. I've seen it in chat, but I'm a little nervous with that Philly defense, who just let Montreal score 3 on them, even on the road, without Blake. But I think they're getting cheap enough, which is shocking because they're usually so expensive. That perhaps you could fit it in if you feel good about it. And it's much more favorable matchup this week than a road Montreal game. All right, let's get into some middies. This is where the money happens, right? This is where we get most of our points.
Where I spend most of my money. So.
Exactly, yeah. Me too. I think our biggest consensus pick this week was Espinoza. Home game. Who was it? Sorry, now I didn't pull it up. Home game against Toronto,
yeah.
Who's missing a lot of names again. Check the reference. But a lot of their spine. They still have Bernadette, but they're missing a lot of their other creative players. So that's I think a decent consensus. We also are pretty consensus-y about Druisi. Again, for matchup reasons. They are playing a home game against a pretty, I don't want to say weak because that's not really fair, but lack of offensive, kind of lack of structured, some holes in that lineup for sure. So yeah, those are our consensus picks. But Jason, I'm going to let you go ahead and tell us who are you looking at this week for midfield.
Sure. Okay. Well, I have to. I'm gonna have to totally pivot now that I didn't. I made all this list before I looked at all the call-ups. So,
yeah.
I definitely. So Hector Herrera is in my lineup. I think that I'm not. I mean, I'm not particularly convinced that that Houston's going to tear New York City up. But
sure.
He's been playing well. He's got a solid floor. I think since I'm looking for value, and I'm also gonna start 5 midfielders. That's just the way that I play. I start 5 midfielders. I generally don't use a scrub in midfield. So Hector Herrera is definitely there. Espinoza's there. If Almada's not there and if Gazdag isn't there, that saves me one of my problems, which was like I missed out on the Gazdag thing week 1, so I kind of have like FOMO about that. So I thought, do I need to spend money? So what else? We'll probably take Druisi now. I'll have to maybe go back to the drawing board on a couple of things. I think Klitsch, I might decide to pick him up just because of the floor. But where do I take the Almada money? I got to think a little bit more about that and go through all of those call-ups. So that one out. Yeah.
Yeah, I relate to a lot of that. I'm also looking at Hector Herrera. I am considering Brugman on the road at Portland with all their injuries, also for floor. I think that's a decent floor.
Yeah, but he only got 1 point less than Puig last week.
1 point more than Puig.
Less, I thought. More? Either way, I was happy with it.
He got a 5, which is the general thing about LA is I think they look like garbage, but he somehow has been producing bonus points in a way that I don't understand. So with Joveljic gone, if Chicharito, who is practicing this week, if Chicharito is playing, which I think is unlikely, that I'm speculating, but If Chicharito is playing, I think that makes some of the midfielders more appealing. If he's not, I think that's a game that I don't want to touch. But I do see Portland as being a little banged up, a little weak, even at home. St. Louis put 2 in on, so it's something I'm considering. I think he won't make it into my final draft, but it's something I'm considering at the moment. I like Mukhtar this week. I like them at home against Cincinnati. I think that is definitely a decent look. Obviously, I'm going to Espinoza. I also like Klitsch, like you said. And then I'm Jersey, as always, is goal dependent. But I'm still considering him. And then another kind of outlier midfielder for me is going to be Santi. He's away from home, he's away from the tiny fields, but he's producing. So it's lineup dependent. I think that one might be for me. Some other players that we didn't talk about that the guys have. Well, they're all on international duty now as I'm reading them because they didn't know that before.
Chat's got Lowen. There's people who pick it up like Lowen from St. Louis.
Sure, yeah, St. Louis at RSL. I think could be a decent road game. There's a lot of games this week that I like more that are road games, and I try to avoid road games if I can. But I do think there's some decent road matchups this week. So yeah, it's definitely missing Gazdag and Almada. I think will kind of make some good parity. For midfielders this week, there's going to be a lot less chalk, I think, because if you can't have those players, then you gotta figure something else out. So
it might be worth taking. I don't know if it's worth taking a gamble on. I mean, Charlotte changed their lineup a bit last week. I don't think. I think Swiderski was on the bench for their. I can't remember.
Well, he's gone on international duty,
either way.
So he might as well.
So I'm kind of interested. Maybe I'll take. Maybe I could, I might do that. I don't know. I'd have to look again. Reed wants to know if his Philly pick is still around. Who does he have?
His Philly pick?
Yeah.
Gazdag?
No, Jose Martinez. He's got Jose Martinez.
No, he's gone, I thought. Let me pull it back up. Now you're making me pull stuff up.
I'll look it up.
Martinez.
No, he's listed as gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah,
so,
Martinez isn't there either.
Sorry, Reed. No hot takes for you. Anyways, let's keep going.
Sure.
And let's go ahead and move into strikers.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of options out there this week, and not a lot of chalk. So, Jason, do you want to go ahead and kick us off there?
Yeah, I might have to I gotta do I might have to do a couple of pivots now. So, so my philosophy about this, again, trying to build some value. So I'm going to try and find 3 forwards that I think are going to play. And I have, I think it's Bassi, who's the forward for Houston, that's been kind of starting and getting into the lineup. It's like 5.8 million. He had a goal last week. Even if he doesn't do anything, I'll put him on the bench. We'll see. I had Longwayne, the guy from Minnesota, 6.7, but he's going to be out. So I might, I don't know that I want to pivot to Duncan McGuire from Orlando. He's finally in the game. I wanted to have him earlier, but he's finally in the game. So that could be something I'll have to go dig. And then I guess I was going to kind of wait and see what ownership looked like for my one field for it. I had Bouanga out there, but if he's not going to be around, maybe I go to Jeremy Ebobisse. I'm a big Jeremy Ebobisse fan. And I don't pick Dallas players, so I know that maybe you might pick like Jesus Ferreira or some other people wouldn't do that. So I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what I do. Especially this whole the call-up thing has messed me up. But
yeah. Always. This call-up week is always a good week to differentiate. How well you're paying attention, who you're paying attention to, and are you just doing chalk? We use that term a lot, but I think that international break weeks are when we kind of see who is and who isn't, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, and I should also say, I've had St. Louis players in my lineup off and on for the last few weeks. I don't have any St. Louis players in my lineup this week. Okay. I might go back and revisit that, but I have to say, I don't see 5 wins in a row, going on the road to RSL at altitude. They had a week off last week. I'm not saying that they're going to lose necessarily, but I don't know that they're going to blow I don't know. I feel
Yeah.
like the numbers somewhere in there have to, something's got to give, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I considered Klaus as a third striker this week, um, but I consider Altitude the great equalizer of MLS sometimes, and so I think that you're definitely, um, making a good point. I think that St. Louis is riding a hot streak. They're not missing hardly anyone to international duty. But going to RSL for the first time can be tricky for teams. So this might, even though RSL isn't super solid and they are missing some players, this might be, kind of a good test for St. Louis. Um, I can't ignore Klaus's production and how many goal contributions he's had across 4 rounds, which is what made me consider him. Like I said, there's kind of some road games that I like more, which goes against all of my natural instincts. I also like Abobasi. Abobasi for me is so hit or miss, and
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
goal dependent. He is that. But I
So
like
I
the
don't like to
matchup.
spend money on forward. So
Yes,
I'll spend money
exactly.
on one goal dependent forward and maybe a
Exactly.
couple other ones on the bench.
But I do really like that matchup this week. He's home. He had a decent start. I think he's a good add to the team. And then I like Carlos Vela this week. Bouanga has added so much to that team. And Vela was really contained by Seattle. And I know I said it sounds like I'm saying that skeptically, and I should be like bragging about it, but I'm not. I just didn't expect them to do so. So yeah, that's who will probably be my third striker. But I think that there's definitely some other names that you could throw out there. Reed and Blaine picked all the players that we already talked about, so I don't have anyone else there. I see Cucho in chat. Cucho's
Yeah.
here, but Zella's not, and he's not doing great. So he wasn't someone that necessarily is on my radar. They have a home matchup against Atlanta. Atlanta's not missing. I don't know. I guess they are missing a lot. They're missing Robinson. The rest of their back line will still be there. And Amada, isn't really part of shoring up that defense. So I don't really feel like. I think Atlanta will be missing some offensive production, but I don't know that they'll be missing a ton of defensive production, if that makes sense. At Columbus, Columbus is hard to predict so far this season, which is surprising considering how talented Cucho and Zella are and how consistent they were for us at the end of last season. But they haven't yet hit that rhythm in fantasy. So I'm not sure that I will trust him this week, but I think that, like I said, there's going to be a lot of parity this round because of international break. So I think that will be kind of an interesting thing to see who people pick up for strikers, because this was when I was scratching my head on a little bit. Ebo makes sense. I think most people might not do Vela because Bouanga's not there. And then I think there's going to be a lot of other interesting names thrown into the mix. So, yeah.
Well, we have you could tell. Mikel Ure from Philadelphia. I don't think he got called up, did he?
Ure
He scored
did
both
not.
of their goals. Yeah.
Yep, he had a great week last week. Ure did not get called up. Carranza got a red card, so he won't be
we don't
playing
know
for
how
them.
they're going to play.
Godsek won't be in that team, so
McGlenn's not there either. I don't know who they're going to have run in the midfield.
Yeah, that's a concern for me too. Kyoto had a great week. He's gone. Arujo had a good week, but again, no Almada. So kind of, I guess Bernadeschi is a striker so expensive, away from home and missing a lot of the midfield. But is he talented enough to do it himself against a kind of weak San Jose defense? Maybe, I don't know. And then I've seen a lot of talk about Bossy, a player I very briefly considered also because he plays early is Ikoba for Portland. He's a 4.5 striker. He was a 4.0 striker. He scored he scored the goal against Atlanta last week. I didn't know who he was. I've never seen him before. I don't even know if he'll ever play again. But like you talked about price rise, that's a striker who is kind of like the Caleb Wiley, if you will. If he's gonna play, and I can't land on a third striker, or I need to use that money in my midfield or my defense or something. That's a price rise pick, right? He basically just has to show up, and because he scored a goal the week before, he should price rise at that point.
And you still might have the guy from Toronto who, if you want another cheap forward, the guy who scored a goal a couple weeks ago for Toronto. I can't remember his name. A lot of people had him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I picked him up a couple weeks ago because I was like, I need a cheap forward. He's going to start, and he scored a goal. So, which was great. Yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, I think some of our more consistent strikers weren't as consistent this last round, and with all the call ups, it just gets kind of tricky in that spot. I think so. I think possibly Vasquez or Brenner could be a decent shout. They're both still around. I think Christian Benteke at home, maybe he's produced a couple. He's had some good opportunities. He's super goal dependent. Priz just scored for the first time this season, and he's going to Miami. There's a lot of names that make me say maybe, but the only ones that really jump out at me this week are Abobasi and Bella. So I think you could look a couple other places for sure. Okay, let's get into the what I'm calling the Almada armband. Who are you? who are you thinking captaining this week, Jason?
Well, I was going to go with whatever the Discord consensus is, which I might still do. But since Almada's not, I'm probably going to take Espinoza, at least for right now, until somebody talks me out of it, or I see somebody say, hey, do something different. I mean, I guess if you wanted to roll the dice, Driussi as a differential, but I don't know. Espinoza's been playing well. It seems like that system that what is it, Nico, the new managers put in, seems to be working for them. So Nico Estevez, So I'll take Espinoza, or if the Discord says something different, I'll go with the Discord.
Sure, always go with it. I mean, it's like a good consensus.
You don't want to miss I'm not trying to differential my captain.
Yeah, sure. That's how you get sub 100 last round, right? Blaine likes Espinoza. He's also considering Klitsch. It's a Blaine. That's pretty typical. Reed is considering Mukhtar, but he's still kind of wavering, going back and forth on that one. I myself am definitely going to go with Espinoza. I think that it is the one that seems the clearest to me, and is a matchup I like, and he's producing. He's, like we've said, he's got a good floor. He also has been taking some banger shots that only I think 2 have gone in, but some of the looks he's been taking make me really, really like him. So yeah, that's who I think I'm going with. I see some Abobasi in chat, and Espinoza as well. Bouanga is on international duty, so please don't captain him. Please don't play him, because that wouldn't be great. I like that matchup, but unfortunately he won't be there for it. So Jason, do you have any plugs for us tonight?
I mean, I just want to thank whoever got Duncan McGuire into the game. I guess that's Skylar or somebody finally, that's it. That's what I have. So
perfect. I'm gonna plug Reed and Blaine, who helped make this show run, and who I feel completely ridiculous being here without. doesn't really make sense. I thank you for joining me and for helping me navigate this kind of strange solo endeavor. And always, as always, shout out to the Patreon community.
For sure.
Helps everything go. Helps everyone have a fun time in a community playing this game that we all love. But so plugging that community as always. If you haven't already, head over to Discord, please do. That way you don't have to rewind and catch back up on all of the call-ups that I listed earlier, because there was more than I said. I was just trying to hit the highlights. So check the injury list, and you want to check call-ups, head over to Discord, get in that general chat, and look for the pings and tags that Tyler has done. And again, one last shout out to Tyler and everyone who helps contribute to that list that they make, so that we know who to expect and we don't all have to frantically search Twitter for every team and who's been called up. So thank you guys for listening, and as always, good luck. All right, Reed. We did it. He'll come in eventually. Everyone can still hear us, so don't talk about embarrassing stuff right now.
Okay.
Usually, as soon as we're done, I start swearing and talking. And Breed's always like, I haven't turned it off yet. So I don't know if you ever get to hear that, but you know.
No, I don't. Yeah, this is gonna be like I mean, man, I'm gonna have to do some serious research now on like.
This is the week that kind of separates, right? It's Listen, I think it's really fun to just play fantasy. You know, to just play. But when you want to be competitive about it, which unfortunately I can't not.
Yeah,
that's why I'm here, right? It's because you
Yeah.
have to kind of do some of that, you know, deep dive.